We're excited that you're here. Today we are going to hopefully answer all of your questions and just be as transparent as possible about our sight reading procedures for middle school NPA. As you know, we rewrote a script so that every adjudicator across the state of North Carolina would be using the exact same verbiage to every ensemble, including timings, and so that is an effort to vertically align with the high school section because they're already using the script, but also just to ensure that every single choir has the same experience, which is why we feel so confident in sharing all of this with you today, because no matter which location you go to for NPA, you are going to have the exact same experience. So we're going to demo that. Y'all are going to be some students today. I'm going to be your fearless leader, and we're going to just chat about the levels and answer any questions. Yay. Today's theme is transparency. We just want you to know everything that there is that we can share with you about this topic.
Okay, so your experience at NPA, depending on how many ensembles you bring, should be around 1 hour. Maybe slightly more depending on when you decide to arrive. From the moment you check in to the moment that you leave, it should be a seamless, just straight line of a process. So you check in at the entry point of your venue. This varies, of course, depending on where you are. After your choir is called back to go to the warm-up space, you get 15 minutes in that space from the time that the last student enters. So literally, when the back of their heel crosses the threshold, the volunteer should start a timer for 15 minutes. And this is so that way everybody gets enough time to practice. You get time to warm up, you get time to debrief and de-stress before you go onto the stage. After that 15 minutes is up, you then proceed to the performance area, where you will be responsible for introducing your pieces, or a student will do it. Make sure that they speak loud and clear, so that way the judges can hear. The judges typically are located in the back of the space. Some sites it's in the center. It just depends on how big the space is. But make sure that you give them time to finish adjudicating after the first piece before you start the second piece. And this is typically indicated by one of them saying, or you can go ahead. So after the performance, which you get up to 15 minutes for, you then move to the sight reading area. Again, this changes depending on where your venue is, and that should take no more than 15 minutes. You will walk into the space. There will be sight reading packets either on the table if you're at Central. At Jamestown, it's circular tables. The packets will be face down. If you're at a site like Wingate University, they are under the chair. Students don't touch them until they are instructed to do so. So make sure that when you are preparing your students at school, tell them not to touch anything. They like to touch things and look weird. They better not. Yeah. So at that point, the door closes. The adjudicator for sight reading will begin reading the script. Everything that you need to know is located within that script, which is located on our NPA website. Make sure you check that out. Make sure you use that as a teaching tool as you prepare your kids for sight reading. Things to know about sight reading: it's not optional, but it is comments only, or you can get a score. So that means that if you know that your kids aren't doing well with sight reading, mine this year, cool, that's fine. Choose level 1 for rhythm, choose level 1 for melodic, and say comments only. Doesn't affect anything. It doesn't even affect your overall score after performance. So take that into consideration. There are multiple levels, and we'll talk about this, of sight reading examples within the packet. We have unison, we have 2-part, I think we also have, do we have 3-part? Or is it just 2-part mixed?
The highest level is 2-part mixed voices.
Yeah. So different options, there are examples.
And you get to choose, it doesn't list it where you use it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get to choose. There are about 10 years worth of examples on the NPA website for you to pull from, just in case you want to use that as a resource. If not, you're free to use Sight Reading Factory as well.
And Isaiah has taken the time to go through the sight reading packets from the past, and he used only those to make a beautiful graphic organizer that we'll take a look at in just a few minutes that delineates what is included depending on the levels that you choose. So there's no guessing. There will be no surprises other than the actual rhythm or the actual melody, but what will be included or what's possible, you'll know up front.
And the overarching goal with changing the sight reading policy and procedure was we want for students to be as successful as possible. Sight reading is probably the most taxing mentally part of the entire NPA process because you never know what's going to happen in that room. Just like on the stage with the performance, but the sightseeing is something that's brand new to them that they've never seen before. So they get more chances to be successful. We've tried to rearrange the script so that way you can be more of a resource. You still don't get to sing to them, but you can answer more questions and you can kind of guide them to figure out the answer.
Okay, we're going to navigate through some of the highlights of Isaiah's NPA website. We won't exhaust all those things today. Certainly it's a place you can reach it from ncmea.net in the middle school choral section, but when you choose NPA, it's just going to direct you to a link here. So we're just going to navigate a few of the things that may be helpful for you right now, and then you can explore on your own as well.
Okay, so registration. Whoever it was that sent me an email last week saying that the deadline was not posted, thank you. It's right here, and it's up here. You have two options of where to click to register. Like I said in the general meeting yesterday, it's through ChatterUp. Trust the process, get all the way through it, so that way if you're paying with a check, you can do so successfully. Finding your event. If you click on the drop down, it will show you the counties. In the past, not all the counties have been listed. So if you have a question about which site you go to, just send me an email and I will gladly figure it out. It also tells you the site that you go to, the address, town, whatever, your site coordinator, almost said section leader, not that, your site coordinator and their email address. The email addresses are directly from NCMEA. So it is the district MS Choral MPA at ncmea.net. So if you were in East 1 MS Choral MPA at ncmea.net. Something easy for you to remember. If you were interested in becoming an adjudicator, there's a button for that. Resources is where you can find all of the documents. We have a link to the music list, which is being updated by Stephanie Smeltzer. Everything is there. POP does not stand for pop. It is permanently out of print, just so you know, in case you didn't know. Treble chorus and mixed chorus is all there with the grades and voice parts. If you want to suggest new repertoire, there's a button for that. Forms and documents, that shows you all of the score sheets. As you prepare for NPA, and maybe you call in a guest adjudicator to kind of help with the process, you can get them from here.
And students really appreciate the opportunity to familiarize themselves with those documents. It provides a really great opportunity for you to talk about terminology with them, especially if it's not necessarily the word that you use in class. And so this just kind of provides a level playing ground for everyone. We can talk about the adjudication forms, we can talk about maybe some elements that we're missing as we get closer to the performance time. So we highly recommend that you use them as a tool for yourselves. And then again, if you were to have guests come through.
And we moved to a new system. Instead of the triplicate forms, which we've traditionally had, my brain moves faster than my mouth sometimes. It's great. Instead of you getting your own copy, it is now being scanned into a Google Drive folder, which is then shared with your school email, along with the recordings. So everything that you receive is digital. This is so that way we can save some money. It's faster, it's more efficient, and if there is a discrepancy later, we have a record on file that's easily accessible.
It's also a great thing to have for the perpetuity of your program, perpetuity of your program, I caught it. So if you leave your program and you know you want to leave it in great hands, and the new director does not have access to those documents, we can provide those for a new director. If you're stepping into a new role as a new director, you could contact either Isaiah or your site chair and ask for that information. That's another reason why all of the emails are filtered through that ncmea.net. So no matter who becomes site chair, everything lives within the NCMEA home.
Yeah. You will see, like I said yesterday, a new NPA policies button. Nothing is really new per se, it's just clarification of words. The old policies and procedures had some grammatical stuff and just a lot of mumbo jumbo. So went through and streamlined, it's all pretty much the same thing. Feel free to go through it if you would like. Performance procedures, this is kind of explaining the process of registering and getting ready to go to NPA, what to expect just in plain text. Sight singing is a drop down. The procedure button takes you to the script. Everything that says say is for the adjudicator. They will read directly from the script, so there's no guessing of what they're going to do. It tells you the amount of time that you have to do certain parts of the sight reading exercise. Angel Cuddyback, our next chair, says that she uses this every day when she's practicing with her kids. That way when they get into the space, it's not a guessing game for them either. Part of that is also to give them more time, so they're not listening to what the adjudicator is saying because they already know what's being said. As soon as the page is shared that they need to turn to, they start looking at it, and they start practicing audioing. There we go. Moving along. Sightseeing exercises, nope, this is the criteria, that's okay. This is the graphic organizer that Emily was talking about. Again, I don't want anybody guessing what's gonna happen. I don't need any assumptions on, well, in the past, it's right here. Don't try to scroll through your Rolodex, okay? I have the format here as well as the different levels of rhythmic and melodic. This was because Smart Music reached out to Susan Heiserman last summer asking for some clarification on how we do things. So like Emily said, I went through all of the exercises and just kind of figured out the patterns. So that's there as well. Previous sightseeing examples is what I thought I was going to look at. I painstakingly went through and scanned every single document that I was given from my predecessor. They're all here, they should be rotated correctly.
Cross your fingers.
Yes, yay! You will notice that, of course, over time, the examples, I won't say they got easier, but they became more attainable because early 2000s chorus was different than today's chorus. So you will notice that maybe in the earlier years, there was that SAT format or SATB, and then as time has progressed, it's been reduced down to two-part minutes.
The other thing that Isaiah has done with the sightseeing that he has been in charge of is he has included measure numbers for all measures, which we love, and also in the unison sight reading activities, he has included them in both the treble and the bass clef, and so I think that is a wonderful step forward.
Well, that was actually an Emily suggestion for that one, so.
We did it.
Yes, teamwork makes the dream work, y'all. Performance results, I know that some of us feel a certain way about this, but they are here in case you want them. You just have to go into my spreadsheet and figure it out, but it's posted if you are really that concerned with it. FAQs, I try to think of every question that I've ever been asked in the past year about NPA and put it here. So we have our purpose, we have our cost, which I want to say was updated, yes. The cost went up to $150 in case you didn't know, from $125. Y'all, it's tough out here, okay? If you can't afford to go to NPA and you're concerned but you really want to go, I gave you some solutions on how to get funds. I think I said this yesterday, don't be afraid to charge your children, y'all. $2. Honestly, $2 to $3 is all that you really need. And if that's just enough to get the bus, not to get registration, World's Finest Chocolate, the best fundraiser in the world, until they go to $2 per bar. Yeah, everything that you can think of is right there. And of course, if you can't find it on the website, feel free to email me, MS Oral Activities, I think it's at the bottom, yep, right there. And I'll be happy to give you some clarification on it. Any questions about the website? Yay. Oh,
Great job.
thank you.
Okay, so we have updated the process for how to get your octavos approved for the music list and graded for NPA. The process is exactly the same as it's always been, but again, with our goal of transparency, we've outlined some very specific dates where your music is eligible to be reviewed. So if you'll take a look, our submission form is going to close after December 1st. And that's so the Stephanie Smeltzer, our music list chair, and her team of members at large are able to review all of the pieces that have come through in the Google form prior to you registering for NPA, not registering, but registering what pieces you're performing. So there's a rubric that she has linked, and it's linked here, it's linked on the NCMEA website, and I'm hoping this slideshow is also in that app. Is it? I see some heads maybe. Did anybody try to access it? Okay, perfect. So you can always go back to this. So then the updates will be provided at the very end of the year. And then from December 2nd through March 31st, the forums are going to be completely closed. That's to allow all of the choral music educators that are serving in these capacities as our music list chair and as our members at large to prepare their kids for NPA. And so you'll have plenty of time to submit from April 1 to December 1. Yes.
And as usual, which most of you know, you don't have to take pieces from the list. So if you find something that you really want to take it. It's fine. Just because it doesn't have a grade behind it doesn't mean that it's not performable. Most of the adjudicators, honestly, and this is transparency, don't check to see what grade something is.
Don't care.
As long as your choir can perform it successfully, that's what matters. And if they cannot, they will let you know in a kind manner via the recordings and the score sheet. So if it doesn't get on the list, it's not the biggest deal. Just take it. It'll be on there next year. I promise.
Yeah, I think there's a stigma associated with my middle school choir sings at level, insert level here. We just want them to sing healthily and beautifully and age appropriately and level appropriately. I don't even share what level with my students. I don't say, you are going into NPA and you're going in at level 4, or we just don't talk about that. And I know it may be important to you, and so if it is, please don't let me take that away from you. But as an adjudicator and also as a teacher in the classroom, I'm sharing with you, it's not something that I place a lot of importance on. There are new pieces that come out that I get really excited about, and it's after December 1st, and I really want my kids to do it for NPA. We're gonna take it. We're gonna go to level 1. Even if the piece feels like it's a level 6, we're going at 1. So I just encourage you to sort of flip that stigma with your students and just share, we're going to NPA and we're seeing these pieces. And then you worry about the levels and all of those things. I think you can be very successful without worrying about that.
And that's kind of the goal over the next few years, to shift the perspective of NPA, because let's be honest, growing up through NPA, it was competition. We're going to competition. It's not a competition. We're not out here to compete against each other. We're here to give our kids an experience and an opportunity to perform in front of peers and to learn. So it's for feedback,
Yes.
not for our ego.
Yes.
Take that somewhere else.
Okay, this is the exact same graphic that Isaiah was just showing you from the website. I have literally copied and pasted it. So you can see for your rhythmic sight reading levels, we've got 1 through 6. And then you can see where different lengths of notes and rests are incorporated, and then also what meter is going to be used based on the level that you choose. Same thing for melodic here. Again, just copied and pasted from the website. Maybe it's a little bit bigger here so you can see, but as we get to these higher levels, we've got 2-part treble and 2-part mixed, and then of course the intervals are going to move to major 2nd, major 3rd, perfect 4, perfect 5, both ascending and descending, and you'll get some of that low so as well. Yeah.
About if with 2-part, if we have 5 baritones and 200 sopranos and
Yes.
can they sing 2-part treble and those baritones still sing on the octave, or will they be scored less?
Can they sing 2-part treble and the baritone sing down the octave? So like your sopranos and your altos would be the part 1, part 2?
I would say this half the room sing part 1, this half the room sing part 2.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if they're the octave that they're most, if they can't sing up.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. You can also choose the key. You get to choose the key.
Just because it's written in F does not mean that you have to start in F, y'all. You know your choir better than I do.
Right, so you know the keys that they are sounding really good in, especially with our changing voices. I feel like that's something that you can really use to your advantage. So, but no, if you can't change the key to accommodate those changing
I just
voices,
meant like if it was mixed, then there'd be 5 on part 2.
yeah, don't do that. No, 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 no. And just tell your adjudicator. As we sit for the performance part of adjudication, a lot of times y'all will say, send notes like, the basses are gonna double with the sopranos for these measures, and as long as we know that it's happening, we don't think anything is weird. Perfect. Okay, are y'all ready to be Miss Turner's students for a little bit? Okay, so the point of this, we're gonna do it and we're also gonna talk through it, okay? So, you're not my regular students. I wish you were. I'm sure that you're gonna sound fabulous in just a minute. But you can start to develop some language, some dialogue in your classes every day where your students will know what you're talking about. For example, before we, because I think the next slide, yep, don't look, okay. I say things to my students like, I need your best eyes on the score whenever we can flip over our packet. We're looking for things that are going to be difficult for somebody in the room. It might be that I'm calling attention to something that's going to be difficult for me as the student, and I might raise my hand and say, Miss Turner, is it true that there's a skip in measure 2, beats 3 and 4? And the teacher may say, that's true, Andrew, thank you so much for asking that. Do you see what I did there? We're calling attention to the thing that could trip up our neighbors. Or I may say to my group, please take a note of the rests in measure 4. I'm not saying there are quarter note rests on beat 2 and beat 4. I'm just bringing your eyes to the thing that can feel tricky. And it's not even necessarily that a quarter rest is hard for my kids, but if they're going to make mistakes in level 1, it might be on a quarter rest, right? Please make sure that you're holding the full length of the note in measure 4. That's a half note on beats 3 and 4 that I don't want them to cut off too soon. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Okay, so you're also going to be, especially in the melodic, you're going to be asking your students to look for that as well. Another place where I find my students mess up a ton, if the piece is organized, measures 1 through 4, measures 5 through 8, the last one at 4, and the first thing in measure 5, are they the same? Is there a skip? Is there something that we need to call attention to? That's a place where my kids mess up often, and I try to show my sight reading stuff to them in the same look that it's going to be at NPA, so it is 2 lines for them. When we do it, when we practice in class, it's 4 measures and 4 measures. So anything that you can do in your classrooms regularly, where you're having these dialogues and they're bringing questions to you, which is calling their classmates to that thing, or you're saying, look for this, make sure you see this. I think those are going to be really helpful tools.
I also think it's very important to mention that each of us have different schools of thought when it comes to music literacy and how we get our kids to present that. Some of us do takadimi, some of us do clapping, some of us do counting, some of us do yep, all the counting, right? Some of us do solfege, some of us do numbers, some of us just sing a lot. It does not matter. And I'm going to make sure that it's very clear to adjudicators that it does not matter. As long as they are successful in performing notes at the full value and they sing the correct pitches, they're reading music. I, as a music educator who I use takadimi and I use solfege, if I'm looking at a piece of music, I'm not thinking this is do to me. I'm thinking, that looks like a third, cool. Right? So it does not matter. Use what you are comfortable with and keep moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the level 1 rhythmic. Isaiah is going to be our adjudicator. He's going to start at the top of the script, and we're gonna go through together. It'll be on your screen. If you'd like to pull it up on your phone, on your mobile device, on an iPad, you're welcome to do that. But we're gonna wait for Mr. Cornelius to tell us when we can flip our packets over.
Today, you will participate in the sight reading portion of the North Carolina Music Performance Adjudication. Along with your director, I will be guiding you through this portion of your NPA assessment. Please make sure all sight reading booklets are and remain closed at this time. If you do not have a booklet, please raise your hand. One will be provided.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep it closed, please. Closed. Thank you.
In a moment, your director will select a rhythmic sight singing excerpt for your ensemble to perform. Please leave your booklets closed. Director, you may now choose your exercise. You have 45 seconds. When I turn my timer on.
This is just a director's decision. It is not a conversation with your students. You already know what they need to do. You already know what level they're on, and you haven't even opened the packet yet. So you may go in and you may think of, I think we're at level 3. You may flip the book and say, oh, we actually could do level 4, or level 3 is in 3-4, and my kids perform better in 4-4, so I'm gonna choose that one instead, right? So Mr. Cornelius, we're gonna choose rhythmic level 1, please.
Wonderful. Please turn to page 1 and look at the exercise labeled level 1 rhythmic. You will have 1 minute to study.
You're already working.
You will have 1 minute to study and discuss the rhythm of the exercise. You may ask questions, discuss the score, and rehearse during this time. Your director can answer your questions, but cannot demonstrate any of the rhythms in the exercise. I will signal when there are 10 seconds left in the discussion period. Your time begins now.
Okay, friends, I'm gonna give you some time to work on your own in just a moment. If you can make sure that you're sitting tall in your seats, feet flat on the floor. Just gonna bring your eyes to a few things. If you'll notice, measure 1 and measure 7 are the same. Measure 1 and 7 are the same. If you'll notice, measure 4 and 5 are the same. If you'll notice, measures 2 and 6 are the same. Please make sure on our longer notes that you're holding out the full length of the note all the way through. Does anyone have anything that they see that they would like to point out before I let you work on your own for a moment? Yes.
The very last measure has a whole note.
Thank you so much. Yes, measure 8. Take a look. Anyone else before we start some of our own practice time?
There are 10 seconds
Yes.
left.
We need to be careful between 1 and 2, measure 1 and 2, because I see 2 front notes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Your discussion period has now ended.
Thank you.
Following your director's instruction, please perform the rhythm exercise.
Here we go. Sitting nice and tall. I'm going to give you 4 beats before we come in. Here we go. And 1, 2, ready, speak. Ta, ta, 2, 2, ta, 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 2. Thank you, Ben. 2. Continue. Emily kept the tempo using gesture. I'm pointing this out because this was an issue at my site last year because there was no clarification. In order to earn superior, the quiet Taylor, I'm not calling you out,
Go
but
ahead.
attest to it.
I've caused a problem.
Don't put it like that. No, there was no clarification. Most of the adjudicators are in the mindset that in order for it to be a superior performance, the choir has to do most of the heavy lifting, meaning tempo is maintained by them. So just know that going in. Emily's first 2 snaps, appropriate, that was the tempo, but as you continued, everything else was gesture. So be mindful of that. Any questions before we continue? Yes?
So you're saying if I'm doing a 4 pattern, that they are not going to rate me as a superior?
No, if it's audible.
1, 2,
Yes.
3,
Yes. Sorry.
4.
My fault.
Got it.
If it's an audible tempo.
So if she keeps snapping,
Yes.
then you can't.
Yes.
But you could do the first 4.
Get them, establish that tempo, and then after that, it is all of them. Nathan?
Are they allowed to stand for that, like rock on the beat? I know you mentioned having them all sit up tall.
Yeah, I typically have my students seated for NPA, but there is not a reason in the world why you couldn't stand or encourage them to rock to fill that macro beat. Yeah, for sure.
Matthew?
So that clarification is now in the rules or the whatnot that it says audible?
It is not, but it will be. There is a lot of cleaning up happening as we speak. With my site coordinators last night at our meeting, we discussed the necessity of having an NPA handbook that gives you every minute detail of what you can and cannot do, because every other section in the state and in the United States has it, and we do not. So it will be published at some point, but know going into it that you just cannot make noise yourself. Yes, ma'am.
If the kids have special hand motion, I saw a lot of you doing the up,
Action.
down, up, down.
Action.
But if they have a completely different set of hand motions that I've made up to help them, can they do those hand motions while they're doing it?
Essentially, your students can do whatever they need to do to be successful. It's what you cannot do.
Again, we could be doing 1, 2, 3, or 3, 4, but in this one, it's harder with the numbers. Pa, 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 that's fine. Just, yeah.
My kids clap. And that's, I think that's the way to go. And we,
Do you count numbers and clap?
I am.
Do you say that? Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, your kids can do whatever they need to do to be successful. It's what you cannot do. So as long as it's being proven that they are doing the heavy lifting, they are fine. But you cannot do anything for them. Once you give them the tempo, all you're doing is being a human visual metronome. Yes.
Yes, well, I asked her, my kids say off and there's no bar line. Is it okay?
Is it clear that it's after beat 4?
Yes, it's the, I'm not snapping, I have to stop snapping. Yes,
Off on like, so it would be on one of the next?
yes. It's just they're used to it, and I've taken that away from them.
I would also just let your educator know ahead of time, just in case.
Okay,
So they don't think you're speaking a quarter note in beat 1 of measure 9.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have time, I could practice those, but that's what I do. And conducting, I normally don't have to give them the tempo. I don't conduct them at all.
That's
Like, I just kind of let them
That is fine.
go.
That, in my opinion, shows even more of them doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah, kind of let them own it.
More autonomy
Yeah.
for the kids, yeah.
Yes.
This kind of goes back to the preparation, like when we were asking the clarifying questions, and we ask questions, we have 1 minute or whatever it is, so we can select, do they have to audiate during that minute, or can they practice out loud?
Out loud is completely fine. The issue, and you probably felt this, that we sort of ran into was that through our discussion, which we are all competent, capable musicians, through our discussion, if you weren't already, which some of you, your teachers were very familiar with the script and you've already been hearing it, some of you in this room, and so you were already patching while Isaiah was talking. And that, I think, talking about why Angel uses the script in her classroom, they could be speaking German and telling you to meet us at the bar, but it doesn't matter because all we're trying to do is get to what's on the page, right? So I think it kind of getting that ingrained in them by doing it in your class all the time, we don't hear what you said, no offense.
And I think for me personally, I try to train my kids to skip over the easy things, which might be taboo. But if you know,
I do
okay.
the same thing.
So if you know that measure 3 is all 4 notes, don't even look
Don't
at
even
it.
look at it.
Look for
And
something.
the reason I called my classes attention 1 and 7 are the same, 4 and 5, that's less stuff you have to practice. For my kids, that's how we would do it. There's no reason in the world for you to practice a whole note, not one, because in class, you already know how to do that whole note. That's for us.
Yes.
Two things, you will let the adjudicators know ahead of time what things are allowed and are not, correct? And secondly, I just think this is remarkably clear for the teachers as well as for the adjudicators, and it really makes things a lot less stressful. I'm not a classroom
Good.
teacher anymore.
But you did for a long time.
Yes, but it would certainly be helpful at NPA, so thank you.
That's the goal. Thank you. Yes.
Is there a certain typo that is said, or
That's
just
all
the
you.
director?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, going off of what she said about students clap anyhow, and I noticed that sometimes they'll clap it correctly, but then they'll say it wrong, or vice versa.
Mhm.
Are they judging based off of their claps or their actual counts?
I'm gonna make a suggestion, pick one or the other. Only so that way, and thinking of how much, we started this year off clapping. And then I realized that the clapping is what was getting them off, so then we moved back to Takadimi. I'm not saying that you need to do Takadimi, but practice one and make sure that they are proficient in that one. And then use that one at NPA. But again, whichever one you choose to use, they're still reading. Just
But
make sure
if
that's clear.
you were to do both, from an adjudicator perspective, I do think it would be difficult, because they would say, your claps were correct, but the things that came out of your mouth were not. So it would be hard to appropriately judge, because in one regard it was right, and in another. So I think as an adjudicator, you would have to say that those beats were incorrect.
Yeah.
I would just have them take your volume down, where they do like.
Count to yourself.
But isn't it hard to clap a half note? Like,
1, 2.
so as long as they can see the,
Yeah.
okay, just
Link
making sure.
and connection.
So as Emily was leading us through this, she was pointing out the things that were similar. The teacher is allowed to do that, it doesn't have to be from the students.
I didn't perform any ribbons, I didn't give any examples, I just drew your eyes to things I wanted you to see.
Essentially, you can say, oh, this is gonna be so sticky. You can say what you need to say, just don't perform it for them.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to use your words. So like, there is a major third skip in measure 2.
I could say we have 5 half notes in a row, not how many half notes do you see from measures 4 through 6.
I don't think you can ask questions.
I've always asked questions.
That's how James Allen.
Yeah.
So in our instructions, it says, this is to the students, you may ask questions, discuss the score, and rehearse during this time. Your director can answer your questions but cannot demonstrate. So I guess it doesn't say you can't ask them questions.
I've only asked leading questions
Mhm.
instead of giving them the answers.
Correct,
to things,
correct.
because I thought that it's all needed to be from
Right.
the students.
Yes, yes,
But I
yes.
can't say, we have 5 half notes.
Yes.
Let's do last question for now, and then we'll take a break.
Yep.
I was just gonna bounce off of that and say, when we had, the site meeting, we did ask, there was questions that you asked that I believe would be fun
Yeah.
for this, the whole, is there anything that you see would be implemented?
But not, yeah, just not calling like very specific, like calling it what it is, yeah. Okay, in the effort for time,
I think we're good.
should we do a melodic?
Yeah.
Let's go melodic, and then maybe, I know that you may have some questions, and we want to answer those questions for you. If we have lots of time left, we'll go back and grab another sight reading, but I feel confident that it will be helpful to do a melodic as well.
Before you turn the page.
Before I turn the page.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Go ahead and turn that page and they can kind of look as I read. In between rhythmic and melodic, they do close their books again and put them down, just so that way it's a fresh start. That's also their time to kind of collect themselves and be like, maybe we did great, but that wasn't so good. But give them that time to close the book, put it down, breathe, while the adjudicator reads more of the script. So it says, now you will be adjudicated on your performance of a melodic exercise with your director's choosing. Please leave your booklets closed while your director chooses which exercise you will perform. Director, you may now choose your exercise. And again, you get 45 seconds to do that.
So at that point, I'm gonna flip through, but I already know from the graphic what intervals I'm gonna encounter, right? There's no surprises. I feel like, as someone who's lived in both the past and then in this world, I feel like I was flipping through to see what the intervals, where the skips were. And then, like where the 8th note tied to 2/16 or the 16th tied to the 8th note. So I was trying to find those things. Okay, we're ready.
All right.
I don't know what level we're doing on. Oh, let's do level 5. Okay, we're gonna do level 5, but you haven't opened your booklet yet.
So please turn to page,
Start
and look at
looking.
the exercise
Start
table,
looking. Start
level 5
looking.
melodic.
We don't care.
You will now
Start
have 2
looking.
minutes to study and discuss
Start
the
talking.
tonality of
Start
your exercise. During the study period, you may sing alone with one another or in sections per your rhythm or per your director's instructions. Your director can answer your questions but cannot demonstrate any of the rhythms or melodies in the exercise. Your 2-minute discussion period will begin immediately following establishing your exercise's tonality. I will signal when there are 10 seconds left. Director, you may use the keyboard to establish a suitable tonal center for your ensemble. This does not restrict you to the key signature that is printed.
Here it is, friends. We're gonna sing our scale all the way up and all the way back down, and then we're gonna sing do, mi, so, mi, do. That doesn't count against my records because that's technical difficulties. Here we go.
And tell me again, Sam.
Hand signs and do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Take a breath. Do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re. Do, mi, so, do. Do, mi, so, mi. And do, so, do below. Do, so, do. So in my class we have a pattern, and you might have one too. And ours is more complicated than that. We do the scale all the way up and all the way down. And then when we get down to the bottom of do, we do do, mi, so, mi, do, fa, la, fa. That's for high school. Do, mi, so, mi, do, so, do, ti, do, re, ti, do. That has more to do with what's coming in the high school. Re, ti, do is such a booger, and it always comes in the high school sight reading, but that's our pattern. So, friends, we're starting and ending on do. Take a look at measure 4. The end of measure 4 and the beginning of measure 5 are the same pitch. Take a look at measure 6, where we have those 8th notes in a row on beats 1 and 2. They are not the same, but we do have the outline in beats 2 and 3 of a triad. Repeated pitches are not our friend. Now, my kids know what that means. You know that it's scientifically proven that your brain doesn't want to sing repeated pitches. Did you know that? So when your kids miss repeated pitches in repertoire or in sight reading, which this is a teachable moment, so we're just gonna let that happen. But when you have repeated pitches, your brain says, no, it can't be so. It has to be a new note. It has to be a new note, and your brain fights up against that. So when I say repeated pitches are not your friend, they're looking for the places where they're seeing repeated pitches because they know it could be a place where they stumble. Question in the back? Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question. So in your like discussion time, you were literally telling us that note is the same as that note. So
sometimes
that feels like that feels like you gave us answers that we probably should have figured out on our. I'm just trying to go back to like what Isaiah is saying and how much we are giving them, and that like I don't know. While you were saying that, and this is not incriminating you. Please don't hear it that way. It felt to me like you gave me an answer as opposed to maybe saying like, look at the last note of the first line. Look at the first note of the second line. What do you notice? And am I making any sense right
You
now?
absolutely make sense. Absolutely, 100%. This is a little bit of a different scenario for me personally because some of these trends that I'm calling your attention to, I've already talked ad nauseum with my kids about, right? Like what's happening at the end of beat 4 to the beginning of, the last beat of measure 4 to the beginning of measure 5 because of the line difference. I don't know. What do you?
Your director can answer your questions but cannot demonstrate any of the rhythms or melodies in the exercise.
So if you say, for
Right, so-
example, measure 6 is difficult, measure 7 is difficult. To me, that sounds as if you're giving instruction. You really are not saying, what the pitches are.
It's not do, re, do, mi, so, right?
Right.
Okay, that makes sense, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry to
and-
stop you.
No, don't be sorry. Also, my students, when we're at NPA, my students are leading the questions. I am not. But I feel like for the teaching part of it, maybe I'm saying more than I would in an actual scenario with my kids. My kids are the ones that are asking me the questions,
Now,
right?
also understand if you're at level 5, you probably aren't asking many questions. Your students probably already know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So then all the prompting isn't necessary. That is more of a level 1, maybe early level 2 situation where you're kind of guiding and you're saying, hey, you need to be aware that something is happening right here.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, and this is for the sake of time because we have 3 minutes, think smart. We are educated people.
Yeah.
Whatever works for your choir, whatever level they're at, do that. But just don't say,
Do,
mi,
mi, fa,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah.
no demonstration.
Question in that?
In my classroom and also at previous MPA site reading, I allow my students to speak, pitch at the rhythm without my help.
Okay.
And usually the adjudicator said that's okay. That's one of our processes is we think about the rhythm, we speak the pitch in the rhythm, and then we sing. Is that okay with this
Yeah.
year's?
That's totally fine.
Are they able to sing?
I was gonna say, they can make noise.
We just can't.
You
The kids
can't
can
make
do
noise.
anything, is what you
Can
cannot
we
do.
prompt them? We're gonna practice this, like, can we do?
Yeah, you could establish a tempo and do the exact same thing as a practice, but you can't. Do, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you were speaking,
Hey.
and I don't know if this is allowed, you were speaking, telling them to look over, and we all started singing and going through it, is that allowed?
As long as the teacher can hear that you have 2 minutes.
I don't, my students do not sing while the adjudicator is talking.
I got stopped for that last year.
Also,
Kids got stopped.
Because they were already singing.
They were singing.
Yeah, I would not have my student, but patching and looking at intervals or hand signs,
I don't know if you noticed this, can you tell them that you were starting on do and ending on do? You did do that, I just was asking.
It was a demonstration.
I think that's a given. They all start on do and on do.
Can't you just say, what does it start on? What is it?
You can. You can. But if you're not, if you've changed the key, all of that stuff too. But I mean, I think they all start on do. Yeah.
It all boils down to, you cannot vocalize.
Yeah.
You
You
can
can't sing
give,
for the babies.
but you cannot vocalize. Last question, Taylor.
What are some of the questions that, sorry.
You're fine.
Is that question?
Oh,
I wanna know what kind of questions you train your students to ask.
send her an email.
Gotcha.
Okay, it is 4:49. Stuart waits. So if you have, oh yeah, you get us. Thank you, Laura. You do get 2 attempts with melodic sight rate. So after the first one, the judge will say, you will now be given 2 minutes to discuss your performance before singing the exercise a second and final time of your score. I will say when 10 seconds happen. So they get 4 minutes to practice in total. And then after that,
You can choose not to do it again.
yes.
You can say, we're
Was some of this implemented last year or
Yes.
is this the first year? This is like not my experience of the last few years, so maybe we can help Jason about that. Okay,
Yeah, if you all have any questions, you know where to find my email address, or find Emily's, or find Angel's. Ask questions.
Thank you so much, Isaiah and Emily.